Reflecting on the roots of humanity, we delve into the sacred pages that reveal the dawn of the people of the African continent. The sacred writings, in their vastness of stories and lineages, illuminate the way for us to understand this complex tapestry that weaves the saga of African descendants with the episodes that followed the Great Flood. On this day, we invite you to a journey through ancestral genealogies, unraveling the genesis and multiplicity of Black ethnicities that flourished after the waters receded. Noah, patriarch of the new era, together with his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth, were entrusted with a divine mission to repopulate the terrestrial orb. This mission gave rise to genealogical lines that branched into different ethnic groups and nations, weaving the mosaic of human diversity. Sem, blessed by the patriarch, assumed the legacy of populating lands that would become the cradle of the Middle East, home of the Semitic peoples, including Hebrews and Arabs. Japheth, in turn, was destined to sow his offspring across the vast lands of Europe and the confines of Asia. And Ham, whose offspring would be associated with the birthplace of Africa, was given the task of cultivating life in those fertile lands. Today, our gaze turns to Cam and his offspring, as it is in them that we find the key to unlocking the mysteries of the African peoples. Scripture tells us that Ham, one of Noah's heirs, fathered 4 notorious sons: Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. These men and their subsequent generations played crucial roles in the formation of the diverse peoples that inhabit the globe today, with special attention to the people of the African continent. Mizraim, the second son, is often identified with the ancient Egyptians. His name, interpreted as 2 lands, reflects the geographical singularity of Egypt, divided between the regions of Upper and Lower Egypt, a duality that transcends time and resonates to this day. Beyond the borders of Egypt, Mizraim's influence extended across vast lands in North Africa. Not limited to geography, this influence permeated culture, enriching traditions and civilizations that flourished on the banks of the majestic Nile. The heirs of Mizraim built one of the most emblematic societies of antiquity, ancient Egypt. Egyptian cultural heritage has echoed for millennia, shaping interactions and legacies across diverse civilizations. On the other hand, the figure of Phut is shrouded in mystery, with his identity less defined. Some scholars postulate that Phut could be linked to the inhabitants of the African Horn. The sacred scriptures, however, are sparing in details about Phut, contrasting with other more elaborate genealogies. Canaan, although recurrent in the scriptures, is not considered to be the ancestor of Africans, but of the Canaanites of the Middle East. This distinction is crucial for an accurate understanding of biblical genealogy, avoiding generalizations about African peoples. A notable episode involving Canaan is reported in the book of Genesis, chapters 20 to 27. The narrative describes Noah, who, after the flood, cultivated a vineyard and, upon consuming his wine, fell asleep without his clothes. Ham, upon witnessing the scene, showed no respect, unlike Shem and Japheth, who covered the patriarch's nakedness with reverence. Upon awakening, Noah, aware of what had happened, pronounced a curse on Canaan, condemning him to servitude. It is imperative to emphasize that the curse fell on Canaan and not on Cam. And, taking advantage of this moment of reflection, I invite you to value our efforts with a simple gesture: a like and subscribing to the channel. This support is the fuel for us to continue bringing enriching content. The core of the issue that concerns us is the interpretation of the curse of Canaan, a topic that, for centuries, was misunderstood and wrongly linked to African peoples. It is imperative to clarify. The curse pronounced by Noah was directed exclusively at Canaan and did not extend to all of Ham's descendants, much less to all African peoples. This interpretative distortion served, regrettably, as a pretext to justify acts of slavery under the false premise of a divine curse. Uncovering this misinterpretation is essential by recognizing that the curse of Canaan was an individualized punishment, not a condemnation of an entire continent. The sacred scriptures do not endorse the notion that such a curse justifies discrimination or inferiorization of any ethnic group. An accurate and contextualized reading of the biblical narrative is essential to avoid unfair generalizations about African people or any other ethnic group. Finally, we turn our attention to Cush, the firstborn of Ham and grandson of Noah. Cush is traditionally associated with Ethiopia and Sudan, and his descendants are recognized as ancestors of the people who inhabited these regions, including the Ethiopians and Nubians. This lineage is also linked to the ancient kingdoms of Nubia, whose cultural and historical achievements are a testament to the richness and complexity of African civilizations. The name Kux resonates through the ages, evoking images of ebony skin, a reflection of human diversity. This name, intertwined with the history of African peoples, suggests distinct physical characteristics such as the dark tone of the skin, a mark of the continent's rich genetic tapestry. Cush, a prominent figure in the scriptures, is recognized as the progenitor of Nimrod, a man of great stature and strength. The book of Genesis highlights that Cush begot Nimrod, the first to be powerful on earth. Valiant among hunters, Nimrod became synonymous with courage and dexterity. His domain initially encompassed Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From there, he expanded his kingdom to Assyria, founding imposing cities such as Nineveh and Calah, landmarks of ancient civilization. The city of Babel, in particular, occupies a prominent place in the biblical narrative. It was there that the people, under the leadership of Nimrod, dared to build a tower that would touch the heavens, an act of defiance of divine authority. Divine intervention, confusing languages, not only stopped construction, but also dispersed humanity, giving rise to the linguistic diversity we know today. The names of the sons of Ham, therefore, are more than mere words. They are windows into understanding the physical and cultural characteristics of the people associated with these lineages. However, it is vital to approach these interpretations with caution and respect, recognizing the complexity of human heritage that transcends names and narratives. The Bible, while mentioning the longevity of its characters, rarely offers exact numbers. The age of Noah's son Ham remains a mystery, a reminder that the story is often told in broad strokes, leaving room for interpretation and wonder. Biblical tradition tells us about Ham, Noah's progenitor, who witnessed the antediluvian era. It is believed that, in that period, a peculiar environment provided a prolonged existence, a phenomenon evidenced in the genealogies of Genesis. According to estimates, Ham, like his brother Shem, would have had up to the sixth generation of their descendants, living around 600 years. Around the final rest of Ham, Noah's son, myths and conjectures proliferate, differing between cultures and eras. The lack of archaeological or historical evidence to support such reports stands out. According to some traditions, Ham would rest on African soil, perhaps in Sudan or Ethiopia, lands imbued with rich mythology and history, often associated with the African descendants of Ham mentioned in the Bible. Another hypothesis suggests Egypt as his final bed, an inference perhaps inspired by the historical links between Egyptians and Africans, in addition to the notorious funerary practices of ancient Egypt. There are many mythical and historical characters who are believed to have been buried in this venerable civilization. The Book of Jubilees offers us an intimate glimpse into Ham's life, highlighting his vehement censure of the choices of Canaan, his youngest son. Canaan, defying paternal guidance, dared to settle in the lands of Shem, which would come to be known as Israel. Ham, alongside his sons, did not hesitate to rebuke Canaan for such imprudence. The reprimand was severe, as Camum, Mau and Cuzi had instructed Canaan to abandon these lands and migrate to the region destined for theirs, the enigmatic Africa. However, Canaan, disobeying his father, insisted on remaining, casting a veil of tension over family ties and weaving a web of decisions that would define the future of those lands among Noah's descendants. Interestingly, Jubilees also tells us that Ham founded the first post-flood city, named Nael in honor of his wife. This city symbolized the desire to rebuild civilization on the ruins left by the Great Flood.